CNN just looked at the murder of kids inside a Catholic school, and instead of calling it what it is, they smeared grieving families as far right. This is what happens when Democrats and the media allies protect their agenda instead of protecting children.
And you know what? There's going to be a lot more of that coming up. You know, especially at these religious areas, you know, hey, we've had enough of your kind coming after public schools, right?
What?
It's about time, yeah, churches and Catholic schools and religious schools, it's about time they get their turn. That's what I think. That's what I think. I'm just going to sit back and watch people do it. And I'm going to fucking laugh. I'm laughing about yesterday. You guys want to laugh about us? We're going to laugh about you. And you know what?
Talk about evil. This is not just ignorance. That's the rot Democrats cultivated. When you preach that faith, family, and tradition are the enemy, you create people who laugh at what happened to these children. And their allies in media never hold them accountable. You got to ask yourself, how can somebody get scum? Why they mock a 12-year-old girl fighting for her life? Sophia. This is Sophia. And you can see what she's holding. She's in a hospital bed because politics blinded leaders to the obvious churches and schools are prime targets. And instead of prayer or action, Democrats mock believers and change the subject. I really can't believe these people and how they are handling this. With a heavy heart, man, viewing all the information coming across the screen and you reply like we seen in the previous clip. But the numbers don't lie. The attacks, unfortunately, are skyrocketing.
The report, called Hostility Against Churches in the United States, released this month by the Family Research Council, found that last year there were 415 incidents of hostility against 383 different churches across 42 different states, mostly vandalism and arson, but at least 28 cases involved guns. 2023 saw the highest number, 485, but last year's total is still more than a 4-year span from 2018 combined. The report called
485 incidents in 2023, 415 more in 2024. That's triple the attacks compared to just a few years back. And Democrats keep screaming January 6th for eternity, but shrug off firebombed churches and murdered children. Why? Because faith is the only institution they can't control. And the culture they've built, let's just say, it glorifies violence. A real magazine cover cheering, armed and ready. Imagine if a conservative outlet printed that. Like, just dream with me for a second. Democrats would be foaming at the mouth because their militant base is treated like edgy art. That's not edgy. That's blood on their hands. And this isn't just loose culture. It's organized.
Yesterday's mass shooter joins a growing list of mass shootings carried out by people in the trans community, among other crimes, like the trans group called the Zizians that linked to 6 killings. Trans has become very violent in this country, hasn't it?
Yes, I think the public should be aware that the mass killing atrocity that happened yesterday by the trans shooter did not happen in sort of just a vacuum. It occurred in the context of years now of far left, leftist, and mainstream left-wing propaganda that is trying to mainstream grievance and ideology among the trans activists and the far left, to the point now where at every demonstration you go to for trans rights, they will make claims that they are victims of an ongoing genocide. When Audrey Hale committed the mass killing at the Covenant School in Nashville 2 years ago, there was a big protest several days afterwards at the state capitol, and people held up an extra finger for each victim that was killed, but they held up an extra finger because they included Hale as a victim in that. And that is the mentality of a very large segment of the activist radical left and the radical chic who support them in elite society in media.
Yeah, that's so well said. You wrote a book a few years ago on Antifa. You warned about the radicalization that's happening. There's the book right there, Unmasked. Warning, too, about the rise of what you call Trantifa. What is Trantifa?
Well, more than 5 years ago, I was observing, just based on the arrest data out of Portland, where I'm originally from, at these Antifa riots, that disproportionately the arrestees were trans, non-binary, or gender diverse. And by disproportionate, sometimes 15% at a night, sometimes 20%, sometimes upwards to a third of the arrestees. Now, there are a lot of trans people in the US, the numbers is growing, but it's not 30% of the population. So it was a phenomenon that I observed then, and I saw that in the time since, the propaganda messaging has become more radical, more extreme, to the point now where there are militias and sort of pseudo paramilitaries that have formed around the United States by transgender identifying people, telling them that they need to fight back against the US government because of transgenocide. They're teaching them how to use deadly firearms weapons. And it's being encouraged by the mainstream media. You can look at reporting that has been done at the local and national level that has made it seem chic and cool for these anti-government extremists, who many of them deal with mental health comorbidities, by the way, and are on hormones, to take up firearms against their perceived enemies.
Now, Ingo.
What a mess. What a mess. Andy No, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Oh, no. Andy No says it plain. These groups are funded, trained, and shielded, and Democrats look away because these militants swing for their team. If they can track every Venmo for January 6th, they can damn well track who bankrolls Antifa and these extremist cells. They don't because they don't want to. Meanwhile, real families suffer under Democrat policies. Defend.
So right now I want to talk about my experience as a trans woman going to the spa. I'm not going to mention the specific spa I'm at for safety reasons. They have been pretty accommodating. I wouldn't even say accommodating, I would say accepting of my gender identity. And I don't want that to change if I let the internet know where I've been able to be safe as a trans woman. Anyway, I have been to this spa before. The first time I was here, I was the only one here when I showed up, and the woman asked me, and I think I have my hoops in, but I probably had like around the same amount of facial hair I have now. I didn't have lip gloss or anything. I don't think I had lip gloss on that, but I'm pretty sure I had my hoops in, or I had earrings in, and I had some facial hair. And that first time, the woman asked me which locker room, what gender you identify with, and I said, I'm a woman, I identify as a woman. And then she took me to the female locker room, and that was the first time I had been in a female locker room, and it was so humanizing because it was set up to humanize.
A man who just murdered somebody was walking into a women's locker rooms because he identified. Democrats turn basic safety into taboo. Girls don't feel safe, and now we know why. They call it inclusion. I call it negligence. This also comes with the caption. Shasha Shakur, who was arrested for allegedly shooting and killing a man in Massachusetts, posted a video admitting that he uses women's locker rooms at a local spa because he identifies as a woman. And then CNN tops it off with this insult.
Well, this gets a little nuanced, and I teach a class on this in Georgetown. This individual appears to be what we call a nihilist. And not to get into too much detail about their ideology, they believe that no lives matter. I believe that calling this or investigating this as an attack against Catholics, I believe, is a little disingenuous, and it plays into the far right's narrative about Christians being under attack in this country.
Wow.
Clearly, since this person went to this school, it appears to be, and we don't know their background. But I think that we're starting to see the creepings of the politicization of this tragedy, and you'll start seeing that more and more. I've already seen that online from some lawmakers. But with that said, I appreciate any hate crime to be investigated as an act of domestic terrorism, so long as it's within the scopes and the reasonability of the law, and it really meets the purposes of what we're looking to do in terms of the investigation. Well, this gets a little nuanced, and I teach a class on this.
The murder of Catholic children isn't far right. It's evil. It's hate. CNN's job was to tell the truth, not protect Democrat optics, man. Like, what the hell? When you deny hate crimes because the victims are Christian, you literally prove the bias is the point. And when truth doesn't fit, their celebrities just lie.
So about the Minnesota shooting, and it brought me right back to Columbine in 1999, when I just could not get it through my head that students in America were shooting each other in schools. And this was a church inside a Catholic school. And what do you know, was a white guy, Republican, MAGA person. What do you know? White supremacist. So about the Minnesota shooting.
What? Rosie straight up invented an identity for the shooter to blame Trump supporters. That's a sickness. Facts don't matter to her, apparently, if the narrative can smear Republicans. And every time they lie, real accountability slips further and further away. So what does real compassion actually sound like?
Again.
Yes. This is why none of these a-holes can lecture anyone on compassion. The most compassionate people on this planet are trying to stop the trans delusion. The least compassionate are the people in the media, academia, and politicians who enabled this hysteria of horror. What is so glaring about the trans cult? Apparently your identity is the only thing that matters until you do something awful. Then it's the least important variable. Then you look at everything else. You talk about guns, but you suddenly, it's all of a sudden like, oh, we can't talk about that. What was it, the other trans shooter that they actually hid her identity? In this manifesto that this creep wrote, he said he was tired of being trans and that he had wished he had never brainwashed himself. What more do you need straight from the monster's mouth? Politicians, activists, teachers, you built this. You could have listened to the warnings. We were talking about this on this show for years. You amplified a hysterical, literally hysterical phenomenon that was going no place good. You created a poisonous program that twisted young minds for destruction, a nihilistic place to be when you deny biology and they have nowhere to go. So all of these media arguments, what you're seeing there among those people, it's to escape their own culpability in the reality that they created. So forget the layer of mental illness and gun control. The origin of the evil lies in the creation of a mindset that indulged a delusional self, ruining connections with fellow human beings. So that trans, by ascribing extreme aggrieved mentality, then gets directed against society, so this person feels justified in killing children. His killing resulted from that ideology.
Come on, man. Love him or hate him, Gutfield, he's right. Compassion means telling the truth before kids end up dead. Democrats' obsession with ideology is not compassion, man. It's cruelty. And if you want proof, watch this exchange.
I think their point is And my point would be as well that you pray and you think for people, and it is important to acknowledge the pain and suffering that folks are going through, but you also take decisive action. And the action here is to make sure that this shooter did not have those guns that they obtained, in their own words, shockingly easily.
Yeah, it'd be easy to make sure they didn't have those guns if you treated transgender identity problems as mental health problems, which is exactly what it is. I'm sorry. You want me to prove I'm not evil to own a gun, but I'm a bigot because I want you to prove you're not crazy because you want to change your identity. Those two things don't line up for you. I don't get that. 5%, 20 million AR-style guns in this country. 20 million of 400 million guns in this country. Only 4% of guns used in homicide are rifles, and that's a much bigger category than AR. So what you're saying is you want me to ban 5% of the guns in this country that are used in 4% of the homicides, and that's going to save our kids. No. Is it going to stop incidents like this? Probably not, because they're already out there. Is it going to stop Democrats from using incidents like this to find some linchpin to raise money and create fear and maybe win an election? No, they're not going to stop either, because they still say that we want to prevent gay people from getting married, and that's been buried for a long time. What it's going to do is it's going to stop people from, like me, from going and buying a gun from someone I know to be law-abiding, to use to hunt with or protect my house, or, you know what, to relieve stress with, because it's been a long day and I want to go shoot a target. That's my right. That's the right of 350 million Americans. It's protected in the Constitution. If you want to take a flip side of this, you said that the National Guard for these incidents is gun control. How about I tell you this? 183 kids died in Illinois last year, on average, so could have been more last year, from gun violence. More than half of those were handguns. Let's see, 20 a year die in D.C. Most of those handguns. Since 1999, let's go back to 1999 because that's Columbine. So just over the last 25 years, that means 250 children died in D.C. from gun violence, mostly handguns. In that same period of time, less than 210 children died in what we would call a mass shooting, and not all of those were from an AR. Why do I bring this up? It's not in some major defense of AR. It's to say that Democrats are absolutely 100% not at all concerned with saving the lives of children. Because if you are, you're going to President Trump right now and saying, God, please bring the National Guard to Chicago. 183 kids a year die from gun violence, most of them handguns, and just because of D.C. versus Heller and the Brune rule, handguns are the most constitutionally protected gun out there. What's that mean? It means Democrats can't go after them. They've tried to. It failed. The Supreme Court said, nope, you have the right to carry them. So now they're going to go after 5% of guns used in 4% of homicides at best, because that's the political win. But the actual win, the saving children's lives, is what Trump's doing in D.C. right now. The actual win, the saving children's lives, is mandating fortification of our most precious individuals in this country. What's the average salary of a police officer? What, $50,000? Not even that in most rural places. We can't pony up to put an RSO at every school to make sure every school has an armed guard out front of it. No, that makes our gun feel like prisons. Okay, well, you know what? You don't like the National Guard picking up trash in D.C. You'd rather it look like a wasteland with people crapping their pants right in front of the Capitol. If we're looking at optics here, you know, I would like to not walk past the drug-using trash I walk past to get to my hotel. I wouldn't mind an armed guard. I've got respect for that person. If you want to save children's lives, pay attention to what President Trump's doing. Pay attention to this narrative about closing the border. Pay attention to this narrative about fortifying the places like schools that matter, because 5% of guns used in 4% of homicides, banning those, no, that's bullcrap. That's partisan, political. That is not saving children's lives. If your kid was one of
that 4%, I think you'd be singing a different tune.
Yeah, but my kid isn't, so I'm not.
Oh, so lucky you.
Yeah,
but there are families right now that are grieving because their kids were part of that.
I'll go to bed tonight and thank God on my knees that don't exist anymore, that my child is still alive, and any Democrat politician that says I'm wrong for that anyone's wrong for praying, God help you.
Well, now you've played the leg card, and I can say no more.
A combat veteran who lost his leg serving his country is told he's playing the leg card for defending prayer? Wow. That's the left's respect for faith, service, and sacrifice. They can't win the debate. So they mock the man. That's the Democrat playbook. Destroy faith, to spin, then spin tragedy, smear patriots. Man, CNN and the Democrats can call murder kids narratives all they want. We call it truth. We call it hate. And we call it wrong. Same thing. Drop prayers for Sophia in the comments. Shut his soul to spin, can't bury the victims. Y'all be safe. Please go check on a friend today. You could quite literally be saving their life. Peace.